Hello people of YouTube, my name is Brad, this is my channel Adamant Orange, and welcome to another Metal Earth review. Today we are going to talk about this B-24 Liberator model from Metal Earth. You see I'm holding the package, it's already been opened. I'm not showing you the model like usual. Why is that? Because I'm saving the best for last. This was given to me by Metal Earth for me to review, and for me to review it, first I've got to build it. On the back we have the difficulty scale, which is kind of on the medium-high range of difficulty, but let's go over to the table where I open this up, see what's inside, and put it together. And here we have the B-24 Liberator. I think is similar, very much similar to another bomber that I've already done. But anyway, let's see what's inside this somewhat hefty package, because it does have some weight to it. Gracious, we have one metal sheet, two very colorful metal sheets, piece of instructions, sheet for instructions, and a third colorful metal sheet. When I say colorful, I mean, mostly greens, but yeah, it's not completely silver. Slide that over to the side for the moment. Let's grab a piece of paper that has Metal Earth on it. Let's open this up and just kind of briefly go over the instructions. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I want to cover it in case anyone watching this is new to building these models. Starting in the front of page, or top of page 1, we've got the Metal Earth logo, a line drawing of the model on one of the sheets. We've got our 360 views, QR code, and website. You can either scan the QR code or just type in this website to go to where you can see a 360 view of the completed model for reference sake. Below that we have the metal sheets, sheet A, B, and C. They are now lettered so that you can more easily find the part and what sheet it's on. Just grab one of these sheets as an example. Which one did I grab? I seem to have grabbed A. You can kind of see this is an outline of this sheet. Parts are numbered around it. You will notice that some parts are colored in, a lot of them actually, whereas some of them are not. The ones that are colored in, the same color, are the same part. We've got these two red kind of blade looking things, chopper blade looking things here, or propeller blades, excuse me. We've got these little reddish pieces here, part 16. I appreciate that these are very similar shades, or different, these are not very similar, these are same colors but different shades of the color, sorta. I have trouble telling the difference, but at least the parts are very different, so that's nice. The parts that are colored the same are the same part. You'll have one that's numbered like 16 here. All of these 6 pieces are 16 and go in different places, probably around the engine, because this thing has multiple engine pieces. Jumping over to page 2, at the top we have the legend. Actually, beside that we have a sample part, looks like a propeller. Again, we have a notation on insertion tabs, insertion holes, and fold lines. Tabs go into holes, into the insertion holes. That's what holds these things together. Fold lines are basically pre-scored areas where the part is meant to fold or curve. Then the legend beside that, E is usually pointing at the engraved or colored side. NE is supposed to point at the non-engraved or non-colored side. Sometimes it's just a section of that side because there's engraving on both sides. You have to be a little careful there, and be careful not to mix the engraved side up with the fold line side. And then we have an intention point. Usually that's trying to get your attention to how something aligns. Blue circle and green triangle. The blue circle, if you see that, it's meaning to insert a part in its slot, fold it over 90 degrees. Green triangle means to insert slot into, or tab into its slot and twist 90 degrees. Then we have assembly tips. If needed, slightly twist tabs to hold parts together, then untwist and bend them down for a nice finish. Beside that we have some tools. We'll talk about tools here in just a moment. And below that we have the start of the assembly flowchart. Starting with part 1 on sheet C. There's what the part looks like. We slide over here. These blue lines and arrows are showing you how that part needs to be shaped kind of in that fashion. We can see at one end here it takes on this sort of oblong shape with flat sides. But the other end is more of a rounded shape. You end up with this part, or this piece over here. Next you have part 2, which is on sheet C. Similar thing, it shapes in this fashion into that. Jump down below that. These two
connect together with folded tabs to become that. And then we have part 3 on sheet B. This is what it looks like. There's a little arrow indicating to kind of twist the circular part, then bend the sides back, and that connects on top right here. You end up with that. And that's the gist of the instructions. You'll sometimes have sub-assemblies boxed off pointing at different areas, but you just follow through, folding and shaping, connecting the parts, get to the bottom of page 2, jump over to page 3, follow it through, page 4, follow it through, and then you grab the next piece of paper, open it up, find page 5, then 6, then 7, then 8. Once you get to the bottom of 8, you are done with your model. Let's talk a little bit about tools. The very basics of what you're going to need is a pair of tweezers and some clippers. The tweezers, you can do a lot of bending, shaping, twisting of tabs, folding of things over. The clippers are going to help you get the pieces out of the sheets cleanly and easily by clipping them out instead of trying to bend them out, which can cause damage. I've also supplemented my set with some precision tweezers. I have a couple of pointed ones here. One, I ground the tip down just a little bit to give it a more sturdy tip for tabs and twisting things, and then I have a precision flat set, and between all of these I can do a lot of bending and shaping and twisting. I also strongly recommend some sort of pliers to complement your set. I have some flat nose here that have definite uses. I have some long needle nose pliers for some of the longer pieces, and then I have some curved tips for grabbing things at an angle and bending them over. For shaping a lot of curves and dome shapes and whatnot, you'll see me use an array of 3D printed tools that I've designed that you can find on my Etsy if you're interested. Otherwise, you'll also see me pull out a cheap drill bit set that I have that's not sharp for shaping cylinder shapes, or just look around your house and use objects that you find like dowel rods, pencils, maybe some beads to shape certain things. Talked a little bit about some tools. I've got the basics to get me started. Probably going to need a few more things. I'm going to get this organized and start on this build.
As you can see, we start with shaping the fuselage of the plane. The body is not perfectly circular. The sides are somewhat flat, so getting the right shape or close to the right shape will take a little work. The back of the plane is a bit tapered, so I used one of my 3D printed tapers to curve the bottom of the sides. Now to join the two halves. Twisting the tabs inside didn't go so well, so I bent them over instead. I'm going to need to bend the tabs in a bit on part 4, as well as bend the slots down a little to get things into place. In the process of shaping this front section, the tabs worked back loose, so I folded them instead of twisting. I could not get a good twist in such a tight spot. Part 11 is a section of one of the motors. This is one of the reasons I designed my cone shaping tools. The stick part works for shaping the circular part of the engine, and the cone tip can help shape the tapered piece. We also need to shape the edge of the wing for the engines to fit. Getting just the right shape is difficult, but some adjustments can be made later. The instructions didn't say to do it, but I could see that the edges of the front of the engine needed to be bent in just a little, so I did. One more thing done. Turns out there was a reason the instructions hadn't said to do this just yet. I waited until part 12 was attached to the upper wing section to fold over the tabs, holding it in a circular shape. I was a tad confused at first where part 14 went. I misread the instructions and thought this was part of the engine. Turns out it's a cover piece behind the landing gear. I folded in the end pieces again of the engine. I don't recommend doing this just yet. I should not have twisted these rear tabs. They should be folded. Luckily it worked out, but there isn't much room at the rear of the wing for twisted tabs. Start with the engine and front tabs first, then fold over the rear tab. And this is why one shouldn't bother folding down the front end of the engines like I did earlier. You need to leave room to fold over and pinch down the tabs that connect the two halves, then fold the front edges of the engine inward. The other wing is just a mirror image of the first and comes together the same. I'll skip through some of the repetitive shaping of parts. For this wing, I did like the instructions said and waited to fold the front ends flaps of the engines until after the engine pieces were connected. The instructions indicate to fold over these connection tabs, but I'm not doing it that way. It would be too easy for things to slide out of place. I twisted the tabs to make them more secure. The wings are pointed up at the end, and with the fuselage together, I decided now is the time for some calculated flexing and squeezing to bring the tips down and better shape the body. This tiny little part 28 is troublesome. I took some time to try and understand just how to shape part 29 and ended up starting the fold off camera. To bend these tabs over without throwing the tail fin out of alignment, I push the pointed tweezers between the tabs to wedge them apart and start the bend. Then a little follow-up bend to secure them, and it's all good. Also, be careful bending the other side over, as there is another set of fold lines that might be bent instead. This time, to start building the front of the engines, I built the engines in 2 sections, starting with parts 32 and 33. Then building parts 34 and 35. And then putting them together. Of course, you will need to make 4. The engine was a little out of round here and the tabs were too close together. I put all the propellers on so that they were oriented the same. One more thing you can do that I didn't is twist the propellers blades slightly so they look more realistic. I wasn't sure which way to twist them so they would be correct as I was recording this video. Now to build the base. It is an interesting design and I like that it curves up to cradle the model. If you fold the sides tightly enough around the body, the rear supports will wind up being behind the wing, keeping the model from sliding back and off the stand. This model was so big, I had to zoom the camera out to really capture it. And here it is, all finished and done. And look at the size of that thing. There's a reason I didn't show this at the beginning of the video, because I wanted to save the surprise of how big it is to last. This is not your little Metal Earth bomber that I'm accustomed to building. But I'm going to save the review for another video. As always, thank you for watching, and keep on keeping on.